All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Lizzie with the department. We are ready to move forward with our onboarding session today. Great for all of you to join us. I would love it if I could see some faces if you want to turn your webcams on, but it's good to see so many faces already. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and get started. So today we will be mostly talking about the coalition point, the coalition pillar. That's going to be our focus, and we're hopeful to give you guys a good amount of time with your strategic thought partners and after we review the coalition as a whole. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy now to give a few reminders.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see you today. Just reminders as we start today. The same that we've had before, just if you could update your Zoom name to reflect the parish that you're in. I think everybody's starting to really familiarize themselves with who is who and who is located where, but let's do that one more time. And I think we see almost everyone on the webcam now, so that's wonderful. So making sure that that's enabled, especially when you get into your strategic partnership groups, and that you're able to talk and unmute as you would like to during the presentation, and definitely during those strategic partnership opportunities. All right. So just a reminder and some clarification, Ready Start Networks in Cohort 3 have the next semester to revisit, adapt, and update their blueprint strategically with stakeholder feedback. We just wanted to make sure that you all were aware that we expect this to be a process that's going to last over the next several months and not something that is due right away. So there is time to do that. Updated blueprints will be due with super app submission, which is February 7th of next year, and next calendar year, 2021. And we will be providing updated blueprint guidance for all lead agencies. We presented this topic to you as part of your development as a Ready Start Network so that you can begin planning accordingly to determine how and when you would like to update your blueprint. So it was exposure and giving you information so you could start planning what that's going to look like. And we just wanted to reinforce that it's not an immediate turnaround. You have time yet to do so and can always reach out to Lizzie or myself for support as well. All right, so we have a new icebreaker today. It's kind of fun at the department to think as our team of great icebreakers. So we like to share the fun ones with you. So you can either unmute yourself or place in the chat box, what is something you've said in the past 6 months that would make no sense to someone in 2019? So I'm going to start. I think I use Zoom as a noun, a verb, and all sorts of other ways that I haven't before. And my family and friends are very aware of what that means. I have a Zoom, I'm on a Zoom, I'm Zooming, I'm going to Zoom. I associated that with how Google became its own noun and verb and all of that. You're gonna Google it, I'm Googling it. So we'll give you a chance. What are some things you are now saying that you never imagined yourself saying before?
This is Tamanika. I'm always saying remotely. Everything from me is remote. I'm working from at home, and so I'm constantly using that with my family and friends.
Great. That is one. Yes, the remote life.
Yes, I totally agree. I'm going to jump in and say I would have never used the words self-quarantine before. So the phrase, like, I went to a wedding, so I'm in quarantine now, like that, that would have not, I would have never uttered that before 2020, that's for sure. Bridget in the chat box said, quote, the maximum extent possible, which is great.
Other things you find you're all saying, or new terminology that we really didn't like Dr. Odingo was saying, that we didn't really use as much before. What are some of those key phrases now. Okay, so we have from Lola, what is your distance learning plan? And Casey is saying the longest spring break ever. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, Lizzie shared another one, unprecedented. Yeah. Okay, Bridget said platooning related to school. Yeah. Trying to think of some others. I'm hearing a lot more, not that I didn't before, but a lot more solutions oriented talks, you know. We talk about a lot about COVID influence this, COVID influence that. Let's see what else we have. Casey, fluid situation. It could change all in the next, it could all change in the next hour. Yes, that is so true. Crystal is saying mask up. Yeah, it's a whole different meaning now to mask up. Bridget, I forgot my mask. Lizzie's seconding that. Yeah, I was out at a restaurant last night and got up from the table and I was in a panic looking for my mask, not my keys, not my sunglasses, my mask. Yes. All right, great. So yeah, things are just changing. Oh. Carmen said, I'm sorry, my team was talking to me. Are we brainstorming words I hate? Yeah. Pam saying flexible. Lots of flexibility. Times are changing. Yeah, fluid, changing, zooming, distance. Great, great. We thought that would just be a fun way to break the ice and get us started today. So thanks for participating. I'm going to turn it over to Lizzie so she can talk a little bit more about coalitions today. Lizzie, you're muted.
That is one that we forgot to say, Amy. Lizzie, you're muted. I hear it every day that you're still on mute. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, and I haven't yet to figure out the most polite way to say it to someone either. You know, it's, yeah, very new.
There's no other way to say it except just to call it out. So thank you for calling it out. And I'm constantly forgetting to turn off my mute. So sorry about that, guys. I was just saying, as you guys know, we are approaching our onboarding for you, kind of going pillar by pillar. And right now we are going to focus on the coalition pillar, which some of you have already begun to do. We asked you to do in your application process. So I imagine all of you are kind of at different stages with your coalition. And I will also admit that this is not necessarily my expertise. And what's going to happen with coalition building is we are partnering with people who are experts in this, advocacy and communication solutions. Just a friendly reminder that they are providing a webinar for you guys next week, dividing you into 2 different groups. So some of you are on the 18th, some of you are on the 20th. ACS is truly the experts when it comes to this, and they'll go much more in depth than I will today. I just want to give you an overview from the department perspective of what our expectations are when it comes to coalition building. I'm going to ask one of your cohort members to share out a little bit about what they've already done. But do know that you will be getting targeted technical assistance from ACS. They are really good at what they do, and they will also meet you where you are. So just depending on, I haven't started this at all, it's in the back of my mind, we're swamped with other things, versus we've already begun this work. Whatever phase you're at, they will meet you there and try and provide support for you specifically on what your needs are. So I think that's going to be a great partnership. I think they're going to give a great presentation next week, and I'm looking forward to also learning from them when I chime in to those webinars as well. So, but let's go ahead and get started from the department perspective, what coalitions are. So your coalition is going to be a group of community members committed to your cause of improving early childhood. These people can serve as advocates, external champions. Eventually, they might be able to serve as funders or fundraisers. Maybe they won't be the funders themselves, but they can connect you with fundraising opportunities in the future. And finally, they might be able to assist you with some of this work. So off the top of my head, the example I could give is, I know in some current Ready Start networks who have been doing this a little bit longer, when it came to setting up their bylaws, they had been in touch with someone in their coalition who had experience with that. So they were able to tap in to that knowledge base and use that when the time came. So your coalition is informally speaking just a group of individuals in your community committed to the same bold local vision you have for early childhood. So what we want your coalition to do is support you, be thought partners with you, promote awareness in your community, educate other people about what you do if they need to. And I think we're going to hear from Dr. Odinga later today a little bit about how they've kind of seen their new coalition stakeholders as ambassadors. So really leaning into that ambassador role of letting others in the community know about what you're doing and how important it is. Coalition members can encourage others to invest in the community network, and then finally advocate on your behalf to help you achieve your goals. So when you're considering who to reach out to, these are the types of groups you want to engage. And these might look familiar to you because when you apply to become a Ready Start network, we asked you to kind of consider each of these groups and who you might include from each groups or organizations you would like representation from. So that includes local, state, or federal government partners, the business community, research. There might be a university nearby, nonprofit partners, other education groups. The faith-based community is always a really great group to tack into. And philanthropy, grassroots leaders, other groups like library, health partners. People have really gotten creative here in terms of the different groups that they've reached out to. I think that it just depends on your community and what's there and who's available and who you really think will be the strongest advocates for your cause, and who also you think needs to be informed about what you're doing. So just keep in mind that the different people you meet and the different organizations you tap into, they can all bring different skills and contributions to your community network. So this is actually a graphic that I have taken with permission from Advocacy and Communication Solutions. But you'll notice that you're going to have core people who are helping you. These are the people you are in touch with all the time. These are the people that are essential to your mission and to your goals. And as you kind of go further out into these branches, there might be some people who are your champions. I love that it says go-to partners. Like, these might be people you don't work with all the time, but if you have an idea, they could maybe be a thought partner. You could reach out to them and say, what do you think of this? Or how can we make this happen? So as you go further out, there might be some people who you don't talk to that much. They're not essential necessarily to your work, but there might be people in your community who maybe are in the media, or maybe individuals that need your kind of information or need to be updated pretty regularly, but might not be like at the very core of your partnerships. It's a little confusing, and it just depends on who is in your community, who is willing to serve, and what you think their different roles could be. So just keep in mind that not everybody you engage with on early childhood issues, not everybody can go to every meeting, not everybody is going to be on your speed dial if you have a question, but if you are informing people keeping them in the loop, tapping into them when you need them, they could still contribute. They could still help your cause. So here are a few examples from some of our older Ready Start networks that have engaged with a variety of different people in their community. So as you can see, many of them have engaged school district leadership, childcare, Head Start, making sure early childhood is represented, business partners, Chamber of Commerce. But if you look, there are some specific examples from specific parishes. So Lafayette, for example, they're right by Picard, they're right by ULL, so they have ULL and Picard Center representatives serving in their coalition, and I believe in their governance structure. In Iberville Parish, they tap into the school board president, and they also have a judge in their coalition that they're informing about early childhood. In Rapides, a United Way representative who has skills in governance building and bylaws has really helped them form their governance structure from the get-go. And I thought this was kind of interesting. In St. Mary's, they were informing and getting in touch with a local radio station host. And I thought that was a great way to tap into the media and get them informed with what's going on in early childhood as well. So as you're considering how you move forward with your coalition, as you plan to engage more people, you could consider the following things. What will that initial engagement look like? The first time you reach out to these people and talk to them, is there going to be some sort of virtual kickoff event? Because I know originally a lot of you had great plans for some sort of kickoff event in person. As we know, that is really difficult now. So we have to consider, are we going to move this to a virtual meeting of some sorts? What does that look like? Are you going to try to meet with people or maybe have Zoom calls one-on-one? Consider how to educate them on the importance of early childhood, how to really drive the message home and get them on board with why early childhood is so important. Also consider, what is this going to look like on an ongoing basis? You could have a really exciting kickoff event and then they might lose steam. So how do you sustain enthusiasm? How do you keep them on board and keep them participating? And finally, which kind of ties into our conversation from last week, how do you want to involve them in the review of your blueprint? These are all questions you might ask yourself, and these are all questions you might want to talk to and engage ACS on, because I think they could really help you answer these questions and come up with a strategic, specific plan for your network as to what makes the most sense for you. So I'm going to pause for just a moment because I talked to Dr. Odinga and Stephanie from St. Charles earlier this week, and they told us they kind of began the building of their coalition during the Get Ready process. And I thought it was very, very exciting what they did. So Dr. Odinga and Stephanie too, if you want to unmute yourself and share a little bit about your meetings, how intentionally they were planned, and what kind of activities you engaged them with.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We want, Stephanie and I would like to share some of the strategies that were very effective for us as we built a coalition of members during the Get Ready process. And from that, we will be moving from that group into our first advisory council meeting in September. If you hear anything that you feel you might want to use, let us know. We want to share everything with you. So the first strategy we use is we assembled a small core group of enthusiastic stakeholders from childcare, private providers, Head Start providers, district special ed, and of course, United Way was always there for us. Right away, we concluded that it was the basis for our moving towards a wider coalition, from that small group to a wider coalition. And immediately 3 words, we need something to propel us forward, and they were access, quality, learning, and of course, equity. And see, we always kept in mind that we were moving from Get Ready to ready start and throughout the time as we built our coalition. So we had a wide range. This group moved to word of mouth, past relationships, and we amassed 25 interested people who were willing to move forward. So that was the first step. The second step was that we decided the best way to engage them was to invite them to various sessions where they can build ownership and awareness. And we did these sessions through PowerPoint presentation. We all came together, and the PowerPoints had 4 or 5 different components every time. The first one was sharing. So we wanted them to get to share something so that they could be really up to and into early childhood education. One sharing was share something that you learned between birth and 5 years of age. So we went around the room and everyone shared that. At the second session, we say share a behavior that you kind of had or when you were birthed to 5 years of age, and that helped develop your self-regulation, letting them know self-regulation is a very important aspect of learning in the early childhood stage. And then one was briefly share your memory of the first thing you think you ever learned. And that going around and around everyone there, it broke the ice and built the rapport and the relationships. The other aspect, the second thing we did was we always included research in all those sessions. Every time they saw this, and they got a copy of all the PowerPoints, that 90% of a child's brain development occurs before 5. They were amazed at that. Another thing is we shared the relationship between brain research, brain development, and early learning, or every time we talked about that. We also shared statewide research data on where we were in early childhood education, and then brought it down to what the research is saying, the data in St. Charles Parish Public Schools. One research question was, did you know there's a 1 million word gap for children who aren't read to? So these research questions were presented to them. All the time we're building ownership and practicing facilitation. During these sessions, we provided facilitation by many different people in that 5 core group. And then we pulled them in. You come, we want you to facilitate this session, this part of the session. You facilitate the sharing piece. You facilitate the engagement piece. And so that was very, very eventful. And that really moved them to that interest piece and the ownership piece. Stephanie will move into a few of the other strategies that we use.
Okay, so to keep in line with getting them engaged in ownership, we also were able to incorporate them having a open discussion in table groups to come up with a branding. How would we get the communication and the message across? So each table sat and they thought about the branding, keeping in mind the focus of the whole point, that quality access and the learning for birth to 5, specifically birth to 3 with the Get Ready. And so they came up with a branding idea, and we just kind of incorporated all of their different ideas into one specific brand. And it came out to be 3 by 3 quality, access, and learning, 3 by 3. Also, we labeled them as ambassadors, okay? So we told them that we're electing them as official ambassadors to represent and to promote and to raise awareness of the 3 by 3 access, quality, and learning. And we had them, another engagement activity, we had them in small groups, and we asked them, how can you help as ambassadors? How can you help? What can you do as ambassadors in your specific organizations or groups that you represent? And then we had a large feedback and we wrote down some of those things. So as ambassadors, we wanted to equip them with something to go out and to bring that awareness and that engagement and to help with that investment piece. So we came up with a toolbox in a bag. And if you look on your screen, you'll see the bag that the branding that came up out of their discussion. And inside of that bag, we had a lot of good learning resources for infants and for toddlers and for preschoolers. And we just didn't give them the bag. We actually explained to them everything that was in the bag. And they had an opportunity to go through the bag and look in it and sit down as a group and discuss. So they took each one of the things out of the bag, the activities that's in the bag, and they were able to discuss it amongst themselves and maybe come up with some questions to us or to one another that we may not have thought about, so that they can be successful in going out with these bags. So one of the activities that we did to help engage them with was a puzzle. And we all love puzzles. So they had to come up with a puzzle, and this puzzle is actually for an 18-month-old. So we had them in groups coming up, and there are 6 different ways that you can maneuver this puzzle to come up with different little pictures. Okay, so they had to come up with the meaning and exactly identify which each one of the puzzle pictures were. Another thing that was inside of the bag, we had musical shakers that they could use with any kind of genre of music. And this was meant for any age group that they can do different activities with. But we just didn't give them the things that are inside of the bag. We also gave them activity resources cards that they can go through. So each one of the cards went with each one of the items inside of the bag, and they can explore how to use that bag, that particular resource with an infant, with a toddler, or with a preschooler. We have Play-Doh that's also in the bag. We have crayons, another different type of puzzle. We have scarves that the children just absolutely love. We have stacking blocks inside of the bag. And of course, my favorite, the bubbles. And of course, we couldn't go without having a book inside of the bag. So we also incorporated that. And we like I said, we gave them an opportunity to actually to go through the bag and explore the bag for themselves before they actually went out. And we had great success. We equipped each ambassador with a bag, and we also had requests for more bags. They took it out into the community. They took it out to churches. They took it out to, we had one particular lady with the credit union. She actually took the bag and actually explored that with her coworkers during her lunch break at the credit union. So we had awesome success for that.
So Ms. Stephanie, the other piece is that we sent them with a flash drive so that they could present to the group. We sent them out with evaluation forms and sign-in sheets so that we could get the feedback and to be accountable for. So I think about at least 15 to 20 of the coalition members have gone out to present in various forums.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing today. We appreciate it so much. What I really loved about St. Charles's approach is that they equipped them with a takeaway and a next step. And I love that they have this amazing bag full of cool manipulatives they can play with. I know I would have fun with that for sure. But in addition to that, they equipped them with knowledge. They made sure at every meeting they shared some source of some research that ties into early childhood and its importance. So they equipped them with knowledge, but they also made sure the meetings were super hands-on. They talked about their own experiences, their own memories. They made it very personal. And so I just thought that was an excellent example of one way you could go about equipping your coalition members with the knowledge they need to be advocates and ambassadors on your behalf. So thank you so much to Tamanika and to Stephanie for sharing today. Loved what you guys did. So just a few more slides, and then we're going to break out into strategic thought partner groups. But one question that we wanted to bring up was, how does Blueprint play a role with coalition building? And you can keep in mind that Blueprint can be a guide to determine who needs to be at the table. As you look at the goals you've already created, you could think about who else could help us achieve these goals. On the flip side, you could also use this blueprint as a recruiting tool. So as you're talking to people about, getting on board with early childhood, you could say, we have a plan. We've done X, Y, and Z so far in our plan. This is our blueprint. So it could also be used as a recruiting tool in some way. And eventually at the bottom, I love what it says here, where it says, to build your coalition, you need to identify the necessary participants you need at the table to achieve your blueprint. And consider carefully who needs to be informed, who needs to be invested, involved, or held accountable. So as you consider the major players in your communities, think about when it comes to the goals of your blueprint, when it comes to the goals of your network, who could really strengthen you, who could help you achieve those goals. Some people just need to be informed and kept in the loop. Some people need to be involved. There's a wide range of people that can be involved here. And I just love that last line about who needs to be informed, invested, involved, and held accountable. And I do want to keep in mind, it is a little, I think that we've done a better job distinguishing the two, but coalition and governance pillars have been confused before. When you think of your coalition, I would think of people. I would say, who in my community have I talked to about this? Who has informed about early childhood? Who are our advocates? And then your governance is like a little bit more formalized structure that's going to make collaborative decisions and advise you in certain capacities. So I like to look at it as like anybody that's helping early childhood in your community can essentially be counted as a part of your coalition. And then a subset of that larger group, some of them will serve in an advisory capacity on your governing board. So I know that can be confusing. So if you have any questions or follow-up about that, please feel free to type it in the chat box or let us know. We also did develop last year some Ready Start Network messaging, and this was formal messaging where we really wordsmithed, if you know what I mean, like we really tried to create some ready to go sentences and messages you could use. So these were shared with cohorts 1 and 2. Our team at the department is revisiting them because, believe it or not, in the course of a year, a lot can happen. So these messages that we developed last year need a little bit of brush up, a little bit of updating. But ACS will present on these next week, I think, and go a little more in depth about them. And these are messages that can be used in documents like brochures, websites, for presentations or PowerPoints. When you're recruiting stakeholders, you can tap into these messages anytime you're messaging about Ready Start Network. So an example is at the bottom of the page here. Some of the core messages that are included look like this. And so we will share these messages with you after we do a few tweaks here and there this week, but these messages will also be available to you soon, and you can use them however you see fit. If you're updating a website, if you need to make an information sheet for, I don't know, someone in your district about what it means that you're Ready to Start nowadays, this is where you would turn to. We hope to have that to you very soon. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Amy because now my part is done and we will break you out into groups again.
Great. Thanks so much, Lizzie. So as Lizzie just said, we're going to continue on with our strategic thought partnering. We're hoping that this is a beneficial time each time for you to collaborate with others during our Cohort 3 onboarding and to talk about implementation and plans and such. So similar to in the past, we'll go into our breakout rooms, make sure your cameras are on and you're able to unmute yourself. You can always use the chat box, but it's easier, as you all have probably figured out, to voice what you're talking about. So this time our discussion will focus on coalitions. So I believe that Lizzie also has the documents and is starting to drop those into the chat box for each of your groups. So you can utilize those as well. So these questions will be mirrored on those documents, but for today, we would like to consider and discuss which organizations or individuals did you list in your application as potential coalition members. So share that with one another. Also talk a little bit about why you chose those individuals and what you felt they could contribute to early childhood. Also, we would like for you to take some time to talk about whether you've started communicating with or recruiting these individuals. Are you still in the planning process? Have you reached out? Kind of a little bit what that looks like for you, and share that with your strategic partners. And then we always want to open it up for you to have time to talk about challenges that you're experiencing or expecting in your coalition building efforts. And that way you can get ideas from one another in these efforts as you're moving along at this time. Does anyone have any questions about the strategic partnering? I think we've really got all the logistics down by this point, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask.
Yep, okay, I'm about to send everybody to their room.